My name is Ria Malik, and I used to think I was the quiet kind of person, someone who did her work, paid her bills on time, and kept the peace in a family that wore togetherness like a badge and treated discomfort like a stain to be scrubbed out of existence. I'm the oldest of two. My sister, Sana, inherited the sunshine, big hair, bigger laugh, and that easy confidence people instinctively orbit. Me, I'm the dutiful one. I make spreadsheets. I remember birthdays with thoughtful gifts, not expensive ones. When our mother Samina would scold Ria, "Don't be so serious," I'd smile and change the topic. It was easier than explaining that seriousness was how I'd learned to survive. We live in a crowded, noisy part of the city where street vendors shout prices like declarations of love and stray cats write novels in the dust with their tails. Home is a 3-story house my father, Naveed, built with years of overtime and the kind of pride a man wears when he believes a roof is proof of love. The house is shared with our father's sister, Faramai Fupo, and her son, Hamza. They moved in 5 years ago for just a little while after Uncle passed. And like a tea stain that refuses to lift, their stay became permanent without anyone formally agreeing to it. I don't dislike my aunt, not exactly. It's more complicated. Farah is a woman of pressed lawns and pressed lips who believes the world owes her for whatever it took. She's a collector of grievances and jewelry, depending on which is more affordable at the moment. Hamza, my cousin, is 26 and drapes himself in brands like Armor. He speaks in hashtags, #grind, #hustle, #neck-spiving while waking up at noon to complain that the world doesn't recognize his genius. He's not unkind, not overtly. He's slippery, like a handshake that leaves your palm damp. If you ask my mother, we are a family built on ice reputation. If you ask me, we are built on appearances. The right outfits for weddings we can barely afford. The right words over tea, the right smiles that start to ache your cheeks if you keep them too long. And underneath it all, there's this constant low hum of tension, a generator powering the whole show from the shadows. I work as an accountant at a mid-sized firm. Numbers are honest with me, even when people aren't. They never sneak up at night demanding to be loved. I've built a life that fits into columns: rent, utilities, groceries, savings. Every month I use my credit card mainly for points and pay it off in full because debt makes my stomach tight. The card is practical, nothing fancy. But it's my independence, my safety net, my proof that I exist as more than service to the family. My father, bless him, is the bridge we all walk on and take for granted. He loves his sister almost as fiercely as he loves us. When Farah's sharp words jab at my mother's insecurities, some of us learned how to keep husbands happy without nagging. He just clears his throat and pours more tea, hoping sweetness can dilute poison. And Sanamai's bright sister has been planning her graduation celebration for weeks. She's the first in our extended family to get a scholarship for a design program. It's not a traditional success, and everyone has opinions. But the moment invites went out, the relatives' tone changed. Suddenly, everyone was invested. So proud. They said on the family WhatsApp group, attaching confetti emojis and unsolicited advice. I paid for the catering deposit because Santa's eyes were stars when she showed me the menu she'd designed herself. "I'll pay you back, promise," she said, biting her lip in that way that made me want to defend her from every bill and every unkind word the world could sling. "That's not how sisters do it," I said. "We keep a ledger only for memories." We hugged in the kitchen while our mother pretended not to cry over the sink. There are moments so soft you want to tuck them in your pocket and carry them like a lucky coin. That was one. But life has a way of slipping sand into your pockets, too. The first odd thing happened on a Tuesday, late evening. I was in my room tracking expenses for the party. When I noticed my credit card wasn't in the wallet slot, I always keep it in the one with the tiny scratch on the leather. I stared at the empty pocket, heartbeat like a pinging alarm. Did I leave it in another bag? I walked through my steps, methodical, the way numbers taught me to be. Work tote. No. Weekend sling. No. The tray by the dresser where I keep keys and hair ties. No. My brain offered up all the reasonable excuses. Distracted, it'll turn up. But underneath an uninvited suspect, The house. Living with many people means belongings can drift as if on unseen currents. I knocked on Sana's door. Hey, did you borrow my card? Sana spun in her chair. No, why would I? I've got cash for supplies. Want me to help you look? It's fine, I lied. I'll find it. I didn't want to launch the family into a debate about responsibility versus trust. That script always ends the same way. My aunt pronounces judgment. My father looks pained, and I appear uptight for caring about boundaries. I check my phone. No transaction alerts. My bank sends them if anything unusual happens. I exhaled, told myself I'd probably slipped it in a coat pocket. Then I heard Hamza laughing downstairs. That specific laugh he uses when he's performing for someone. It made an old instinct twitch. At dinner, my aunt eyed the stir-fried vegetables I'd made and said, "You know, Ria, a little more oil won't hurt. You treat food like a spreadsheet." Maybe I just like us to live past 50, I said lightly. Oh, she smirked, glancing at Sana. The accountant is in a mood. Sana kicked me under the table to let it go, and I did. I always did. It's astonishing how much silence we can swallow when we're afraid of spilling the wrong truth. Later that night, my father knocked on my door. Beta, can I borrow your laptop charger? I handed it over, watched him step out, and almost called after him to ask the question I kept pressing down. Has anyone seen my card? Instead, I said nothing. Because the rule of our home is don't disturb the peace even if the piece feels like a painted backdrop in a theater. Lovely from the audience, flimsy if you touch it. 2 days passed. I managed through work, through family small talk, through recommending chutney with the biryani my mother made because I was the only one who tasted salt and thought constructively. But the absence of my card became a splinter in my mind. On Friday morning, as I poured coffee into the one mug without a hairline crack, my phone buzzed. Transaction alert. I blinked Rs 18,000 at Zuberi Menswear. And then, minutes later, Rs 4,500 at Glow Salon. I stared at the screen while my heartbeat tried to climb out of my throat. The names were familiar not because I'd visited, but because I'd watched Hamzat brag about them in stories. He loved their exclusives. Another buzz, Rs 2,800 at Brew Plus Bean Calf. Something hot traveled up my spine. I walked to the living room. Hamza sat sprawled on the sofa, scrolling his phone, hair styled as if it woke up styled. Hamza, I said, voice steady out of sheer will. He glanced up, flashed that politician smile. What's up, cousin accountant? Have you seen my credit card? He blinked slowly, practiced innocence. Why would I see your card? Because someone just used it at Zuberi Menswear, Glow Salon, and Brew Plus Bean. And those places feel like your vibe. He set his phone down. Wow, that's an accusation. It's a question, I said. My aunt stepped in from the kitchen as if cued. What's going on? I kept my eyes on him. My card is missing. It's being used. I'm asking if Hamza saw it. Farah folded her arms, defensive, blooming like a proud flower. Are you implying my son is a thief? I'm implying that my card is missing, I said carefully, and the places it's been used are places he often enough. Her voice cut like a knife across a soft loaf. You've always been obsessed with money, Ria. Not everything is about your precious card. Sana appeared on the stairs, pajama t-shirt crooked at the shoulder. What happened? I exhaled. Let the shrill part of my fear dissolve into words. My card. It's being used right now. I'm going to freeze it. I lifted my phone and opened the bank app, hands trembling. Another notification, blink TRS 7,000 at Tech Hub. My vision zinged. Wait, Hamza said suddenly, standing up, palms out. Listen, maybe? Okay, maybe I borrowed it once. I meant to tell you. I was going to pay you back today. I swear. You borrowed it once? I repeated each word brittle. My card has just been used 4 times within 20 minutes. He flicked a glance at his mother. A whole conversation passed between them without words. Hamza was buying a gift, my aunt said, for Sana, for her celebration. Because we don't want your parsimonious taste dictating everything. We wanted something nice. Her smile held knives. Santa flinched. Fupo, I don't need sweetheart, she cooed. Let elders handle these things. Ria will get over it. She knows you're special. I could feel my throat closing like a fist. You stole my card, I said quietly. A gift bought with theft is just guilt gift-trapped. My aunt's eyes flashed. How dare you speak to me like that in my brother's house? Before I could form the answer I'd been writing in my head for 5 years, it's his house and mine. I pay bills. 2. Respect is not a one-way street, my father entered, drawn by the noise. What is this? Everyone's voices. Ria? I swallowed the lump that felt like a scream trying to be reasonable. My credit card is missing. It's been used without my permission. Hamza says it was for Sanaa's gift. Santa whispered, I don't want a gift that hurts you. Hamza rolled his eyes. No one's hurt. I said I'd pay back. Stop making everything dramatic. My father looked torn the way only fathers can. Hamza Beta, you should have asked. Ria, we'll make this right. Farah, my aunt, lifted her chin. We will settle it. Why is everyone acting like criminals are in the house? Ria loses things all the time. That was the moment something shifted in me. Not because of the money I could live lean for a month and manage, but because of the casual trespass. The rewriting of reality in front of witnesses. The way she folded my dignity like a receipt and tossed it aside. I closed my app, frozen card confirmation blinking green. The charges done so far are mine to pay unless I dispute them and file a police report, I said, voice like a glass table flat, transparent, capable of shattering. But let's not ruin the day. Sanaa's celebration is tomorrow. We have a caterer to confirm. My aunt sniffed. See? She makes everything about money. Even Joy has to ask her permission. Inside, a small storm formed. It wasn't the wild, destructive kind. It was focused like rain that knows exactly where to fall. That night, after everyone slept or pretended to, I went through the bank portal and downloaded the detailed statement. It showed the timestamps, the locations, the exact merchant descriptors. I learned 2 things. 1. Whoever had my card had been practicing. There were older, small transactions I'd missed. Slipped into days when my mind was crowded. 2. I knew our neighborhood so well that I could draw the path like a map. Zuberi Menswear, next to Glow Salon, then 2 blocks to Brew plus Bean. And a right turn to Tech Hub. That wasn't a random spree. That was a route. A familiar route. I printed the statement at the office the next morning. And as the paper warmed my hands, I had a thought that made my pulse steady. The truth of theft is ugly. Yes. But numbers don't just tell a story. They hold receipts, the kind that don't burn easily. I slid the pages into a folder and went home to get ready for Sanaa's graduation celebration, the centerpiece of our summer. The platform on which our family would perform unity. My aunt would preen in her sequins. My cousin would pose like life was his brand. And I would smile in that way, Malik. Women smile when the world is watching. And then I would decide if silence was still worth the cost. When I walked into the living room, my aunt's eyes skimmed my outfit as if pricing it. Wear the blue shawl, she said. It hides your seriousness. Thanks, I said, adding the shawl. I could be many things in one: dutiful, quiet, observant. But the storm within me had found a shore to aim for. I didn't know it yet, but the bill, that simple, clinical list of numbers, had already started its slow burn through the lies that soldered our family in place. And by the time the smoke cleared, we would all be breathing different air. I tucked the folder into my bag, kissed Sana's forehead, and told myself, tonight, no fights. Let the party be hers. Let the truth take its own time to arrive. I didn't realize the truth had already RSVP'd. The venue was a small banquet hall strung with marigold garlands and fairy lights that blinked like nervous winks. Sanaa's name was spelled across a pastel backdrop in gold foam letters she'd cut by hand. The edges sanded soft to catch the light. The playlist was her curation old film melodies remixed with a beat that nudged even the shyest aunties into swaying. I stood with a clipboard because someone had to be the bones and blood of these moments. The invisible system that makes parties feel effortless. People arrived in troop sans dragging husbands, cousins dragging board expressions. Hamza strutted in late, which was his version of early, wearing a crisp Zuberi menswear kurta that glowed that subtle way expensive fabric does. He smelled of salon hair products and coffee. Behind him, my Aunt Farah floated in like a queen on a parade, her dupatta beaded with tiny mirrors that flashed whenever she turned her head. "Stunning," she said to a cluster of women before anyone could tell her so. "We've spared no expense for our Santa's big day." I bit the inside of my cheek. "We," she said, as if our bank accounts were a communal pot she ladled from with the largest spoon. I glanced at Sanash, was radiant, nervous, checking the desserts table for the 4th time. I hugged her. "Everything's perfect," I said. And it was. It was hers and perfect, and I would not let my storm spill. My father beamed at guests and offered plates like a man offering pieces of his heart. My mother moved through the room, making sure everyone had water, napkins, the right number of samosas. She never sat at our own parties. She believed rest was for guests and hosts ran on adrenaline. The MC, a cousin with a voice like a radio host, took the mic. "Welcome. Tonight we celebrate Sana Malik, the artist, the dreamer, the one who broke the rules by writing her own." Applause. Sana's eyes shimmered. I clapped until my palms tingled, felt my chest ache with pride. The caterer's manager signaled to me. "We'll bring the main course out in 5. The balance payment, please?" "Of course." I smiled, led him to the side table, and slipped out my card only to remember it was frozen. My brain tripped. I'd brought my backup debit card safe. I handed it over. He clicked the PA's terminal awake, inserted the card, handed me the device to enter my PIN. It beeped obligingly, then flashed, "Transaction failed." "Try again," I said. "Easy." He did. Failed. I felt the first prick embarrassment, those tiny points of heat on your neck and ears. "Signal issue," I suggested. He lifted the device to find stronger signal, the way clerks do, like the air above us was richer in approval. "One more time." He ran it again. Declined. He looked apologetic but firm, the way people look when your problem is about to become their problem. "Ma'am, maybe another card?" Voices around us had started to slow, the way traffic slows near an accident. My aunt glided over, sensing drama like a bloodhound. "Everything okay?" she sang so other ears would turn. "The card's not going through," the manager said. Respectful, but loud enough to be caught by a few strategically placed relatives. I reached for my phone, already toggling between bank apps. "It's fine. I'll use the other card." I pulled my credit card out of the folder not to pay, but out of panicked habitan remembered, frozen. I caught Hamza's eye across the dessert table. He smirked in a small, private way that made my heart flash cold. My aunt's mouth curved. Oh dear. Maybe Ria's budgeting finally met reality. A cousin snorted. "Should have let Uncle handle payments, not the spreadsheet queen." A few chuckles rose like bubbles. My father started toward us with a concerned face, but my aunt stepped into his path, loud-voiced, sweet. "Naveed, don't fuss. Ria is independent. She soared it. She keeps telling us she can handle everything." She laughed, and people laughed with her because laughing with Farah was safer than being her target. I've keyed in my other app's OTP, hands suddenly clumsy. The caterer's manager shifted from foot to foot, all patience used up on other weddings. "Ma'am, venue policy says balance before main course." "I know," I said, throat dry. "Give me 1 minute." Hamza took a slow, savoring sip of his iced coffee. "Want to borrow a card?" He offered, voice silk. "I can help." Family helps family, right? Something in me flinched, pride, anger, hurt. I couldn't tell. The same man who stole from me, offering a lifeline made of the rope he used to tie me up. My mouth went sand dry. My mother arrived, breathless. "What happened?" "Decline," my aunt announced for the room, clapping a hand to her cheek in mock horror. Imagine, on Santa's big night. "You're enjoying this?" I said quietly, but I don't think she heard. Or maybe she did and called it justice in the little ledger in her head. I tried the debit card again, declined. The manager's politeness cracked. "Ma'am, we can serve a limited portion first, but—" "Do it!" My aunt cut in, voice crisp. We'll cover the rest. She pulled a slim wallet from her bag, slow like theater, and placed her card on the tray. I saw Hamza's shoulders lift with pride as if he'd paid it himself. The terminal chirped with success. Traitorous little machine. There, my aunt announced, turning to the nearest cluster of relatives who weren't actually part of the conversation. Handled. We can't have guests hungry because someone's bank has limits. Heat smacked my face. Limits. The word landed like a slap. I could feel eyes swing between us, tallying up points in an invisible game. Farah, 1, Ria, 0. Then it got worse. Hamza leaned close, voice honeyed with venom. Cousin, consider this a loan from us. No need to thank me. But, a little humility would look good on you. For a heartbeat, the room blurred. I saw the years of doing everything right like a boring hero in a story. No one applauds for the early wake-ups. The bags carried, the favors remembered, the bills paid quietly while someone else took the bow for family generosity. I heard my therapist's voice from a single session I'd had and never returned to. You're not difficult. You are simply holding the boundary no one respects. I straightened. Thank you, I said to the manager only. Please proceed. My voice didn't shake. That felt like a win, even if it was the kind no one could clap for. Dinner flowed again. The hall remembered how to breathe. Santa did her speech about teachers who believed in her, parents who let her draw on walls when paper felt too small, a sister who brought home secondhand magazines and called them treasure maps. She cried. My mother cried. Even my father's mustache seemed damp. But the bubble had shifted. Laughter had a little edge around it now, and my aunt's friends glanced at me like I was a cautionary tale. This is how reputations change in small, deliberate humiliations that look like help from the outside. Sana found me during dessert, fingers tight around my wrist. What happened with the card? She whispered. Glitch, I said. It's fine. Her eyes searched my face. You're lying. I forced a smile. I'm protecting your night. She swallowed, guilt forging a necklace I didn't want her to wear. I'll pay you back for everything. I'm so sore, stop, I said. This is your joy. Don't rent it to anyone's cruelty. When the music softened and people drifted toward the exit, Hamza and a few guys posed for photos in a corner. He lifted his arm to adjust his cuff, and the sleeve flashed the Zuberi label. Glow Salon's signature hair wax sheen caught the light just so. My stomach turned. The bill in my bag felt heavy, radioactive. I could nuke the scene with it. I could drag the truth to the center and watch it burn everyone who warmed their hands at my humiliation. My father approached me, face carved with worry. Beta, I'll transfer you the money in the morning. I'm sorry. It's not you, I said. You didn't do this. He looked toward Farah, then back at me with the gaze of a man trapped between blood ties and moral ties. Families are complicated. So is theft, I said. His eyes flinched. He touched my shoulder, then let his hand fall. Let's talk tomorrow. Tomorrow? Always tomorrow, the place where we store the things we don't want to hold today. I nodded because I didn't have the heart to tell him tomorrow had already set its alarm. As we packed up, my aunt treated the hall like a runway, ensuring every goodbye included a retelling of her rescue. We just couldn't let the food stop, she cooed. Some of us can step up in a crisis. The performance was flawless. The audience generous. I kept my back straight, my face calm, my hands busy. Inside, the storm finally found its thunder. Not the loud kind, the low kind that rumbles a promise. I had the statement. I had time stamps. I had the root. And I had one more thing. The stubborn, unglamorous courage of a woman who is finally more tired of swallowing than she is of speaking. When we returned home, I placed the folder on my desk like a sacred text. I changed into pajamas, washed my face, and looked at myself in the mirror. They stole from you. I told my reflection, voice steady. They used your silence like a credit limit. My reflection did not flinch. It looked ready. As I turned off the light, my phone buzzed one last time. New transaction. RS 32,000 Royal Orchid Banquets advance. My body went still. Royal Orchid was a different banquet hall. Another event? The description showed a DV hall reservation and the time stamp placed it during dessert. My breath hitched. Someone was booking something while I was holding my sister's celebration together with frayed strings. And then the tiny detail that changed everything. The merchant descriptor carried a note I'd never noticed before. Reference: HNF 25th, HNF Hamza and Farah, or Hamza and my mind tried to outrun itself. There were other possibilities: H for Hamza, F for Farah, H for Hamza. F4, the storm cleared for a second, and a path appeared. The bill wasn't just a statement of theft. It was a map to something they were building quietly, quickly, with my money. I didn't sleep. I drafted an email to the bank fraud team requesting the itemized slips and the signature copies some merchants still kept. I scheduled a call. I organized the charges chronologically, cross-checked with social posts Hamza had made, matched timestamps to his stories. The pattern was unmistakable. They weren't just using my card. They were staging something big. By sunrise, I was no longer a woman who kept the peace. I was a woman holding a fuse and a match. And I had decided if they insisted on building their grand moment with my money, then the bill would be the stage where their show would end, the morning after Sanaa's celebration. The house smelled of leftover biryani and wilted flowers. The hall felt like it had exhaled after a long performance, and in its silence, my storm roared louder. My aunt hummed in the kitchen as if she hadn't rewritten my dignity in front of 100 relatives. Hamza was already uploading filtered photos from the night, captioned, "Family is everything." I almost laughed. Family was everything, especially when you could fund your everything with someone else's wallet. I sipped bitter black coffee, eyes gritty from sleeplessness. My laptop screen glowed with the statement, receipts lined up like soldiers in a war I hadn't chosen but now had to fight. My phone buzzed with the bank's reply to my late-night request. "We'll email scanned merchant slips within 24 hours. Please confirm if you want us to initiate fraud dispute." Fraud dispute. The phrase felt clinical for something so personal. It wasn't fraud by a stranger. It was fraud by blood. That betrayal pierced deeper than any thief in an alley could stab. Then at 10:07 a.m., the email landed. I opened the PDF attachment, and the world seemed to pause. There it was: Royal Orchid Banquets, advance payment, Rs. 32,000. Reference: HNF 25th. My breath caught when I scrolled further down. Attached was the scanned authorization slip, signed in a hurried, uneven hand. Hamza's signature. I stared, blinking, waiting for reality to change its mind. But it didn't. His name, sprawled out carelessly, sat there like proof carved into stone. And the 25th, that date was just 2 weeks away. What were they booking? A wedding? An engagement? Whose? The question was answered faster than I expected. That afternoon, while gathering laundry from the drying lines, I overheard Farah on the phone in her room. Her voice was a little too sweet, a little too performative, the voice she used when she wanted to sound important. "Yes, yes, the deposit is made," she said, pausing with smug satisfaction. "The hall is ours for the 25th. Just ensure the guest list is ready. You know how people talk. We need to make this the event of the year." A giggle. "Don't worry, my Hamza will shine. Everyone will see how we rise despite our hardships." My stomach twisted. She wasn't just planning any function. She was orchestrating a grand engagement or wedding announcement. And she was using my money to fund it. I stepped back, nearly dropping the laundry. My heart raced so loud I thought she'd hear it through the wall. The dots connected: the designer kurta, the salon, the banquet booking. Hamza wasn't just stealing to indulge himself. He and Farah were staging their big social comeback, using me as their invisible sponsor. And then came the gut punch. If this was Hamza's engagement, who was the bride-to-be? That evening, I found out. Sana and I sat in the kitchen, sipping tea, while my mother prepared lentils. The air was heavy, but we were trying to stitch normalcy back together. Then my aunt strode in with that smug energy that announced she had news meant to rattle the room. "By the way," she began casually, as though dropping a pebble into still water, "mark your calendars, everyone. On the 25th, we will be celebrating Hamza's engagement." The spoon clattered from my mother's hand into the pot. Santa's eyes widened. Engagement. With who? My aunt pressed a hand to her chest. With none other than Mewish Khan, daughter of Mr. Rauf Khan. You know, the businessman who just opened that new plaza in Gulshan. She smiled with triumph, watching our reactions like a hawk. A respectable family. A wealthy family. We've secured a bright future for Hamza. I froze. Me wish. Khan was the girl Hamza had boasted about for months, the one he claimed was out of his league. But that he would catch eventually. And somehow, with enough money flashing in the right places, he had. My mother looked stunned. So soon? You never mentioned, Farah interrupted. We wanted to surprise you. And honestly, we weren't sure it would all come together. But with Allah's blessing and a little support, everything is falling into place. Her eyes flicked to me for just a second. A sharp, knowing glance. I felt my jaw tighten. She knew. She knew I had figured it out. And instead of shame, she carried her theft like a crown. Sana whispered, "But 25th. That's just 2 weeks. And the hall." "Yes," Farah said smoothly. "Royal Orchid. Exclusive booked already. Guests are being informed. It will be grand. Something this family deserves after years of gloom." Something in me cracked. "With my money," I said quietly. Farah's smile didn't falter. "Oh, don't be dramatic. It's family money. What is yours is ours. You're unmarried, childless, living under your father's roof. Your money should serve the family's future, not rot in." "Some boring savings account?" My mother gasped. "Farah." But she continued as if this was divine truth. "This engagement will elevate all of us. You should be grateful Hamza is carrying the family name forward. If you can't contribute with joy, at least don't sour the atmosphere." I looked at Hamza, who had strolled in halfway through, smirk plastered across his face. "Relax, Ria. We'll pay you back after the wedding gifts start rolling in. Think of it as an investment." My fists clenched. "An investment without consent is theft." He shrugged. "Call it what you want. End of the day, the banquet is booked. The girl said yes, and the Khans are on board. Do you really think you can stop it? What will you do? Call the bank and cry fraud? Report your own family to the police?" He laughed. "You don't have the guts." His words seared into me. Not because he was right, but because he believed he was. He believed I'd stay quiet, swallow the humiliation, just like always. And maybe once I would have. But not anymore. Because here was the twist. Hamza and Farah thought they had staged their grand victory. But in their arrogance, they left a trail of receipts that told the story better than I ever could. I had the scanned slips, the signature, the timestamps, and now I had motive. The 25th wasn't just going to be Hamza's engagement party. It was going to be the day their carefully built empire of lies collapsed under the weight of a bill they couldn't outrun. I leaned back in my chair, forcing calm into my voice. "Congratulations, Hamza. Congratulations, Fupo. The 25th will be unforgettable." They mistook my stillness for surrender. But I was already planning the fire. The days leading up to the 25th felt like walking across a tightrope strung over fire. On the surface, I was calm going to work, smiling when spoken to, helping my mother with groceries. But inside, every step was deliberate, measured, waiting for the moment I would no longer have to balance quietly. My aunt and cousin mistook my silence for defeat. Every evening, I watched Farah on the phone, fighting relatives, bragging about the Royal Orchid banquet as if she herself had conjured it from thin air. Hamza strutted in and out of the house with shopping bags, new colognes, shoes polished to mirror shine. He had even bought Santa a dress for the function, tossing it at her with a smug grin. "See? I'm generous, unlike some people." But what he didn't know was that generosity looks very different when you're paying with someone else's money. I had everything I needed: the bank slips, the merchant receipts with his signature, the the fraudulent transactions. I had even spoken quietly with a manager at the banquet hall, confirming in writing that the advance payment had been made with my card. The man had been reluctant but official enough to send me a confirmation email. I stored it carefully, like a matchbox waiting for the right moment to strike. And so, when the 25th finally arrived, I was ready. The banquet hall Royal Orchid Banquets glowed like a palace. Chandeliers rained golden light across velvet drapes, and waiters glided between tables with trays of sparkling drinks. The Khan family had arrived, dressed in their wealthy ease, exchanging pleasantries like currency. Melish Khan, the bride-to-be, wore a blush-pink lehenga that shimmered with every step. She was beautiful, confident, her smile easy. She didn't know yet that this night wasn't going to end the way her family had envisioned. Guests clustered around Hamza, showering him with congratulations. Mashallah, so handsome. One aunt cooed. Another whispered to Farah, "You've secured a golden match for your son. Allah has blessed you." Farah preened, soaking in every drop of praise. I stood near the back watching, my bag heavy with a folder inside. Sana lingered next to me, worry written across her face. "Ria," she whispered, "are you really going to?" "Yes," I said simply. My voice didn't waver. "They've stolen my money, my dignity, and they think I'll stay quiet forever. Tonight, I'm giving them the bill." She squeezed my hand, torn between fear and relief. The announcement the hall fell into hush as the MC, a hired professional with a booming voice, took the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here tonight to celebrate the union of two wonderful souls, Hamza Malik and Mewish Khan. Let us begin the evening with a round of applause." Thunderous claps echoed. Farah dabbed her eyes with a tissue for show. Hamza adjusted his cufflinks, flashing his expensive watch like a trophy. The speeches began. Mr. Khan spoke about family honor, about trust and loyalty. My father gave a nervous, polite blessing. Sana kept her eyes down. I waited, heart steady, storm ready. And then came the moment. The MC called Hamza and Mewish to the stage for the exchange of rings. That's when I stepped forward. "The confrontation, excuse me," I said, loud enough for the mic to catch, though I wasn't holding it. Heads turned. Conversations froze. The MC faltered, looking unsure. I walked to the stage, each step deliberate, folder clutched in my hand. My aunt's smile faltered into suspicion. Hamza frowned. "I'm sorry to interrupt," I said, my voice ringing clear across the hall. "But before this engagement proceeds, there's something everyone needs to know." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Farah hissed, "Ria, sit down." I ignored her. I pulled out the first sheet from the folder, the banquet slip. "This entire event tonight," I said, holding it up, "was not paid for by Farah or Hamza. It was paid for by my credit card. Without my permission." Gasps shot through the crowd. I flipped to the next sheet, the salon receipt. The salon appointment. Then the menswear slip. The designer clothes. The cafe charges. The tech store. One by one, I laid them bare under the chandelier light. Every expense Hamza has flaunted these past weeks, every so-called show of generosity was stolen from me. My card, my money, my trust. The room buzzed like a hive struck with a stick. Hamza's face turned red, then pale. "She's lying," he blurted, voice cracking. "She's making it up because she's jealous." I held up the scanned slip with his signature. "This," I said, my tone slicing the air, "is your handwriting. Your name, your crime." I turned to the Khan family. "And this," I said firmly, "is the truth about the man you're about to tie your daughter's future to." A stunned silence followed. Mr. Khan's face darkened, lips pressed into a hard line. Mewish's smile had vanished, replaced by confusion and shock. The collapsed Farah scrambled to salvage the moment. "She's exaggerating." "Family share, she gave permission, I never gave permission." I cut in. I froze my card the moment I realized. "These charges are documented, reported. If you'd like, I can show the email from the bank's fraud department." "Shall I read it out loud?" Her mouth opened, then closed. Hamza tried again, voice shrill. "You can't prove I meant to steal." I was going to pay her back. After your engagement gifts, right? I shot back. You call it borrowing. The law calls it fraud. And your future in-laws might call it something else. A warning. The Khans whispered among themselves, faces tight with anger and embarrassment. Mr. Khan finally stood, voice booming. Farah Bibi, you told us you could handle the expenses, that you had everything arranged. And now we learn your son funded it through theft. It's a misunderstanding, Farah began. No, Mr. Khan said, cutting her off with steel in his voice. It's humiliation. We cannot attach our family name to this kind of deceit. He turned to Mewish. We're leaving. Gasps and whispers exploded around the hall. Mewish pulled off the ring and placed it back into the velvet box, her hands trembling but decisive. She walked off stage without looking at Hamza. The Khans exited, heads high, leaving a wake of stunned silence. The aftermath at the hall, Hamza stood frozen, face pale, chest heaving. Faraz Dupatta slipped off her shoulder as she scrambled after the departing Khans. Calling, please, wait. We can explain. But no one waited. The guests' relatives, neighbors, acquaintances all watched the spectacle unravel. Some whispered, others openly shook their heads. I could hear fragments, shameful, thief, ruined. And then, the final blow, my father, who had stayed quiet too long, finally spoke. His voice was low, trembling, but filled with pain. Farah, Hamza, enough. You've shamed this house. You've broken trust. Tonight, every mask has fallen. I cannot defend you anymore. He turned to me, his eyes wet. Ria, Beta, I am sorry. I should have listened sooner. For a moment, silence wrapped the hall, heavy and final. Then people began leaving, murmuring to each other, leaving Hamza and Farah standing in the ruins of their perfect evening. And me. I stood tall, folder in hand, storm finally unleashed. The fire had burned, but for once. It wasn't me left in ashes. The Royal Orchid Banquet Hall emptied faster than I'd ever seen. The glittering chandeliers still burned. The food still steamed on silver trays, but the glamour had died. Gossip traveled quicker than the waiters. Everyone wanted to be the first to spread the scandal of how Hamza's engagement collapsed in front of 200 witnesses. I stood by the stage, folder in hand, my pulse steady for the first time in weeks. My aunt sat slumped in a chair, mascara streaked, clutching her handbag like it could rewind time. Hamza paced like a caged animal, pulling at his collar, muttering curses under his breath. Every now and then, his eyes darted toward me, filled with venom. But there was no smirk left on his face. My father approached, shoulders stooped, but gaze clear. Ria, he said quietly, I don't know if I should thank you or apologize to you. Both, maybe, I answered, softer now. I never wanted to ruin anyone's night, but they gave me no choice. They stole my money, Abba. They stole my peace. And they thought I'd stay silent. He nodded, swallowing hard. No more silence. For the first time, I saw him not as a man torn between sister and daughter, but as a father who finally chose the truth. My mother embraced me tightly. You were brave, she whispered. Too brave for the rest of us. We kept swallowing, hoping peace would come. But peace without justice is just silence. Her tears wet my shoulder, but they didn't feel heavy. They felt cleansing. After the fire in the days that followed, our house felt like a battlefield after the soldiers had fled. Quiet, raw, every corner echoing with what had been destroyed. My aunt locked herself in her room most days, emerging only to scold Hamza in whispered bursts of anger. The invitations she had sent out, the boasts she had made, all of them had boomeranged back, leaving her humiliated. Hamza avoided me completely, retreating into his room, curtains drawn, music blaring. His phone buzzed less and less. Friends who had once orbited him like satellites drifted away. The Khans blocked his number. His carefully constructed image cracked like a mirror. For once it wasn't me who walked through the house on eggshells. It was them. I paid off the charges on my card with the reimbursement. Farah was forced to hand me every rupee counted in silence. her hand trembling as she signed the transfer slip. She didn't apologize. She didn't need to. The shame in her eyes was louder than any apology she could have given. Healing Sana, sweet Sana, was the one who worried about me. One night she sat on my bed, her face pale. "Ria, I still feel guilty. My celebration started this chain." I shook my head. "Don't. None of this was your fault. Joy doesn't cause theft. Thieves do. Don't carry their burden." She sniffled. "But you carried all of ours." I smiled, stroking her hair. "That's what big sisters do. But from now on, I'll carry it differently. Not in silence. Not by letting others step on me." Her eyes glistened. "You looked like a queen that night, you know? Standing there with the papers in your hand. Not a victim. Not a wallflower. A queen." I laughed softly. "Then maybe it's time I start ruling my own life, not just surviving in theirs." Reflection: as weeks passed, the whispers in the family network spread further. Some relatives called me cruel for humiliating Hamza publicly. Others called me courageous. But the truth didn't need their verdict. The truth already lived in the receipts, in the signatures, in this silence broken. And as for me, I learned something essential. Silence may keep the peace for a moment, but it always costs more in the end. Boundaries aren't selfish, they're survival. Trust isn't a given, it's earned. And dignity isn't something you defend only when convenient. My credit card had been a piece of plastic, but in their hands, it became a weapon. In mine, it became a sword of truth. Closing one evening as the sun dipped low and painted our street in gold. I stood at the window and thought about everything. My family would never be perfect, but perfection had never been the point. The point was that I had finally stopped shrinking to fit their comfort. They thought they stole from me, I whispered to myself. But in the end, it was their masks that got stolen. And with that thought, I smiled. Because I finally knew the truth. Sometimes the bill doesn't just demand payment, it delivers justice. And that was my story. A reminder that sometimes betrayal comes from the people closest to us, but justice always finds its way. If you felt every twist and turn with me, don't forget to like this video so more people can join our storytelling family. Hit subscribe and ring the bell, because every week I'll bring you more powerful tales of family, betrayal, and the sweet taste of revenge. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were in my place? I'll be reading your thoughts.